think the hardest part of my operations, believe it or not, is staffing. And to be in a city like Atlanta with 6.5 million people in the Atlanta area, it seems like that wouldn't be the problem. But to find candidates that can fit what you're looking for and meet your expectations sometimes can be hard. Plus, I've learned, and I've only been in Atlanta for 3 years, that Atlanta is a divided city. So if your hotel is located in the south side of Atlanta, you won't get certain candidates from other parts to even come that far down to work. So if you have some really good service people there in this area, or they're not in this area, it's going to be hard for you to get them to come down there and work for you unless you're paying them a really good penny to travel that far, because it's a pretty good distance and traffic can be crazy. So that's been my one challenge, is having consistent, high quality staff, just making sure that we're able to keep those positions.
Hi, welcome to Deep Current by Oceans. This is the show built for people who actually run operations in hospitality. I'm your host, Kaylor, and today I'm joined by Rodney Jiles. He's the Director of Operations at Kimpton Overland Hotel in Atlanta, Georgia. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Rodney, before we get started, please tell us about your background. How did you end up in hospitality? Was it a deliberate decision, or did the industry kind of organically pull you along the way?
Well, I'm originally from Shreveport, Louisiana, and I went to Southern University in Baton Rouge. I actually studied education and business. Started off working at a casino hotel, actually working on the casino in housekeeping as just a regular housekeeper. I was just floating back and forth through the bathrooms. But of course, every day I was dressed sharp and I was just really on it, taking care of the customers. And a lot of the customers would always give good compliments about my performance. So my boss wanted to promote me after a couple of months, and he promoted me to inventory clerk. So I would come and stock up all the areas along the casino and also in the restaurant area as they were preparing to build the hotel. And I did that for a few months. My cousin was the bell captain for the new hotel that was about to open, and he needed an assistant bell captain. And he said, "Hey, man, I want you to come over and be an assistant bell captain." And I said, "How much does it make an hour?" But back then it wasn't a ton of money. He said $5 an hour. And I'm up there like, "Man, I'm making $12 an hour right now. I can't leave that for $5." And he said, "I promise you, when you come over here with your personality, you'll be kissing that $12 like goodbye. It ain't nothing." So I'm like, "Oh, okay, I'm gonna take a chance. This is my big cousin. He's like my brothers." I took a chance to listen to him. And at that point, we went through a training at the Horseshoe Casino Hotel on our service and how to take care of the customers. And I fell in love with hospitality at that point.
How many years ago was that, Rodney?
Oh man, that was right at 30 years now.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So I did that, man. And I went on to be a bell captain myself for the Isle of Capri Casino Hotel. And after doing that for a few years, they promoted me up to a front desk supervisor. Then I went over, I was the assistant executive housekeeper. Then I went back and did front office manager. Then I left there and went back and did executive housekeeper. And then they put me in acting as the acting director of hotel operations for about 8 months. And that got me going in the management part. So I took off from there. From there, I went on. I opened up the Hilton downtown Shreveport as the executive housekeeper at first. Then I was promoted to the ops manager for Hilton downtown. Which is kind of they have GM and then ops manager. It's kind of like the assistant GM. And then I left there and I went to a full service Wyndham Hotel, 425 rooms as the GM. My trails and blazes through the hotel industry has been long and hard, but I worked my way up through the ranks.
Amazing. So Rodney, tell us about the operation today, what you're responsible for. What does it look like? What's the scale? How the team is structured? Anything there is to know about what you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis?
Well, It has changed over the years, and it depends on who the GM is or the direction that the corporate company wants to go in. But I'm over the daily operations of all the operation departments, which typically consist of everything but food and beverage. And at some hotels, I've been over all of the food and beverage as well. But I make sure the housekeeping, the shuttle staff, the bell staff, the front desk, reservation. I make sure all that goes without a hitch. I make sure everything goes smooth in those areas.
So what does that look like from like on a week to week basis for you personally? Don't give me the job description. Give me the real version of you that's there in the heat of the moment every day. What are you doing?
Sometimes it's wearing a fire hat. Sometimes it's being a counselor. Sometimes it's being able to solve problems and think fast on your feet. A lot of people are taught to do the position and do the work. So a lot of times you got to think for people, and because they haven't seen all these different situations, so you make sure that everything flows as flawless as possible. The people don't see what's going on behind the curtains. They see a smooth operation, and they don't know that I had to do this at the last minute. Make sure we get this, take care of this. Someone called out, I had to get this covered and make sure that the manager has the support they need to get stuff taken care of. Even as far as having to drive the shuttle because a shuttle driver got sick. And you have so many pickups because we have contracts with different airlines, and then we have airport guests that are coming in. So it's a lot of work. And sometimes you're the unsung hero because you're doing everything and you're always fixing stuff. And because I've worked in every aspect of hotels, from food and beverage to housekeeping to everything, I kind of can help out everywhere and make sure things run smooth.
So how much time would you say out of everything that you're doing, how much time is spent in field work, like actually there on the floor helping people out, versus how much do you spend doing the boring stuff that is also equally as important that goes by, probably you have to
Yes,
sit behind your
yes.
desk and do. What's the distribution of that?
It depends on the day. Typically, it's about a 60-40. I'll probably do 60% office and 40% out on the floor. But if we having some issues or something, sometime I'll spend, the flip, and I'll spend 60% on the floor and 40% in the office. Most of the office stuff is strategizing. I typically meet with all the heads of operations of my areas, and we go over a plan for the weekend and the next week. I look at scheduling. I make sure that we are as efficient as we can and being productive as we can. We go over service recovery and guest service to make sure that we're on top of guest complaints. And I look for trending issues and see how we can eliminate these issues. Um, and I always tell my team we're preparing for where we're going and not where we're at. So even if we're at a lower occupancy and we're not having a big crowd of people, I want us to be prepared for when that crowd is coming. So I try to get them prepared so that we can do the best on our service and also be as productive as we can.
Let me take note of that because I want to come back to all of that work that goes behind the desk. Right now, Rodney, what is a part of your operation that you're most satisfied with? Something that you've already figured out, something that your team is doing really well, something that you're very happy with today.
Well, it's kind of a mixed bag. Certain areas have outstanding customer service. I look at our service scores, and at times I think that they could be better. We have a program right now that I'm promoting around the property called Strive for 85. It's something I created. The standard is 75. They want the brand, want you to be at an 80. Well, my goal is to have it at an 85. I want to be five above the brand. So I want to really push us to um, provide outstanding service. So my thing is us having great service and being efficient as possible. A lot of times your measurement is your budget and how well you can maintain it and also meet all those goals. If I can meet those service goals and take care of those customers and get in all those good surveys.
Rodney, on the flip side of that, what is the hardest part of your operation that somebody from outside the industry might not always appreciate?
I think the hardest part of my operations, believe it or not, is staffing. And to be in a city like Atlanta with 6.5 million people in the Atlanta area, it seems like that wouldn't be the problem. But to find candidates that can fit what you're looking for and meet your expectations sometimes can be hard. Plus, I've learned, and I've only been in Atlanta for 3 years, that Atlanta is a divided city. So if your hotel is located in the south side of Atlanta, you won't get certain candidates from other parts to even come that far down to work. So if you have some really good service people in there in this area, or they're not in this area, it's going to be hard for you to get them to come down there and work for you unless you're paying them a really good penny to travel that far because it's a pretty good distance and traffic can be crazy. So that's been my one challenge is having consistent, high quality staff. Just making sure that we're able to keep those positions filled. Because a lot of times people will get the position and they'll work for us and they'll come in and they'll do a good job for us. And then now they got the experience and they just go to Midtown or Buckhead or one of the other areas, Alpharetta, different areas like that, and they'll take a job there.
Well, to that point that you make, I have read that turnover in hospitality is currently running at around 70 to 80% annually for many companies. You'll tell me if that's the case for you, if you feel like that's about right. But
Yeah,
what's
that's
the
about
real
right.
cost of that? In your book, like where's the cost? Is it time? Is it money in having to replace the staff? What do you think?
Well, we came up with a dollar amount. I remember the exact number, but it was up there. And that number is that percentage is actually right. The time and effort you put in training, processing, posting jobs, everything that you have to pay to get done to try to get that position filled, and for that person not to work out or that person decide to go on and go to another hotel, it really does put you in a bad situation. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one very common pain point. So we'll come back to staffing. Pivoting for a moment. There's one thing that I also hear consistently can be a challenge for operators, and that has to do with the interconnectedness of their systems and their tools. On any given day, for example, how many systems, if you want to do your desk work, the one that I said I would come back to, how many tools roughly do you think you're using and going to so that you can understand what's happening?
Several. So I have to use the opera system to actually look at part of what we have going. It pretty much gives me my occupancy, where we at, things of that nature there. Then we use a different system for our forecast. Even though opera gives you a forecast, it's not as accurate as the outside source forecast through BI analytics that we use. And then we have to go into Medallia to see your service scores and see where you're at with that part. And then we have Kipsu, which is our text communication with our customer to be able to talk to them prior to them arriving and get that part taken care of and see what else we have. Of course, your micro systems, your emails. So you're hopping from screen to screen to get stuff done. We have a system. We have a program called Track My Shuttle for our shuttle for guests to make requests on. It's kind of like Uber without paying to request a shuttle and see where it's at and how long it's going to take. So we have to pull that screen up and track and see what the shuttle's at. Because we're near the airport, we have to have up a flight tracker so we can see what's going on with canceled flights because we can get a hit with all these canceled flights at once. So it's several screens that you're watching. You're looking to see what. Plus, you pull, you look at your star report. So it's a ton. It's a ton.
Mhm.
And that's not even counting the payroll system, the UGK, and all the different stuff. So it's a lot.
It definitely sounds like a lot. So, given everything that you have to look at, walk me through a typical morning. Do you and your team have like a stand up type thing where you meet with the leadership to understand where the operation stands? And then if you do that, I mean, how much of the information that you're having discussions on is real time and how much requires people to bring reports or you to build reports and then mutually look at the data?
Well, I asked my team to everybody bring something to stand up to be able to keep us up to date with stuff. My first thing is when I walk on property is I walk the property every day. There's not a day I don't walk the property. I walk through the restaurant, speak to our guests, make sure everybody's good. If they're super busy, I may step in and pour some coffee or do something to help them out. I walk the grounds and make sure we're looking good, trash, anything like that. Check on the front desk, make sure there's no issues or anything going on. And then I go to my desk and I start, I pull my emails up, start pulling reports from prior nights so I can look at our daily and see what do we do prior night so I can have that information on hand. And then I prepare to go to stand up and have them stand up and we give each leader a minute or two just to discuss what the plans are for the day, what our occupancy going to look like, how many rooms, how you've been cleaning, just all that type of stuff. So we can kind of have a game plan for the day, kind of a brief game plan for the day of what we're going to be doing and what we face.
You mentioned earlier that you're maybe 60-40, right? Like 60% doing the exciting stuff, walking around the property, helping people out, put out fires, and 40% is probably more boring desk work. But if you were able to modify that and spend more time doing one or the other, I mean, I kind of have a hunch, but what would you rather be doing more? And what do you think was a reasonable amount of time for a leader like you and peers in this industry to be spending on the back office?
I think that back office should be about 40%. I actually think that my balance sometimes is right. It's just that sometimes I have to do that 70-30, and that's the part that, kind of wears you out. But I think that the more presence that you have up front to be able to make sure that the guests have experience, also to support your team, especially when you're trying to reach goals or you're trying to assure that that your team is providing the best service. Sometimes people learn by examples. People learn in different ways. So I believe it not only showing you, telling you, teaching you, but then you see for yourself, see the example. So I'll come up and I'll help as much as I can.
Mhm,
So I think that the 60-40 split is the best.
mhm. Well, it sounds like it, but let me throw a bit of a curveball at you because
Okay.
yes, I mean you're telling me that it sounds like it's an ideal distribution. At the same time, you have all of the systems that you described, all of those different tools that you have to be on top of constantly to make decisions. And I can't help but feel like in 2026 we keep moving toward integration and efficiency so that the anything that is digitalized
Mhm.
is faster, right? And then you don't have to spend as much time there. Do you feel that way, or I mean, I could be totally off here.
I mean, they've integrated a lot of systems, of course, with your micros working hand in hand with your opera and different things of that nature there. So the integration of different systems and things of that nature there have been really helpful, which makes it more effective so that you can be out to be with the customers and it's be able to support your team more. But our management style is holding people accountable for their actions. So I have leaders for each area. So you have a front office manager, you got executive housekeeper, you have a chief engineer. So they have responsibility of things that I expect from them. So
Mhm.
I hold them accountable for getting stuff done and taking care of it, getting the information to me that I need. Of course, I do follow up to check to make sure, but it's important to be able to hold them accountable to be able to get that stuff for you. So you won't be going crazy trying to do it all yourself. I've been in that situation before and it's not fun. Yeah,
I can imagine. So what you're saying is, out of everything that you have visibility on, they probably have a bit of a narrower visibility to make their decisions so that not everything falls on you again.
exactly.
That's so. In that note, then, when something unexpected happens mid operation, and a lot of things can go wrong in hotels,
Mhm.
in hospitality, right? But if a system goes down, or a key person calls sick, or there's a booking spike, or any of the things that you mentioned before, how quickly does your team know about it? How does the response typically work?
Well, typically, the manager is the first person in that area. They contact them first, and then I'm notified that they're short, and I'm coming. I'm that guy that's gonna come in. I don't mind jumping on the desk, or like I mentioned before, driving the shuttle, or helping with a situation, whatever it would takes, because operations is mine. So I want to make sure that they're successful, and it's always good knowing that the coach will get in and work with you. So yeah, I've had those challenges for with several management companies operating you as some have a very tight budget when it comes to staff. One call out can put you in a whirlwind, Not
Mhm.
every management company sets you up with the proper amount of staff to be ready to switch when things happen. It's like they expect the manager to step in and take care of a lot of this stuff. So, and I'm not going to kill my manager, so I step in with them to make sure we lighten that load.
But would you say that you largely depend on people noticing that something is wrong, or do you have proactive ways to figure that out, as like within minutes or automatically in some way, shape, or form?
I do. Well, one of the things we do is for distressed passengers families, we have a deal with TA Connections. We load our distressed passengers in TA Connect, where they let us know, and we also can look at the system and see that they're starting to book reservations. And once we start seeing them pick up, then that lets us know that, we need to go ahead and be geared up. And you do a +2 and stay over a couple hours to help out. Can you come in a little early? Look like we're going to get hit. And we know that that's also part of that flight tracker and watching the weather. So we're seeing that they just experienced 10 cancellations here and there and there. Oh God, we're going to get hit. So we get prepared for it so that the team is aware of what's going on.
Do you have any cool examples? Let me change my word there. Not cool, but interesting, or recent examples that come to mind of something that happened that you were able to action because you had the information quickly.
Well, that's actually probably one of them. They had some bad storms on the East Coast. Our occupancy was very low, so we put in several rooms in distress, but we didn't know if we was going to pick it up or not. And we got hit with it with one person at the desk. We made some adjustments and had another clerk come in. I came in and we got the line down, but the line was super long. And part of the bad weather, you had the bad weather, and we had problems with TSA at the same all this going on at the same time. So flights were canceling for weather, and some were being canceled because they couldn't get people through with TSA. It was just so much stuff going on, and we just made the adjustments and had people to stay over and get things taken care of. Which was very rough for a few days. Well, actually, about a couple of weeks, because we would every day I had to kind of have everybody on standby because we didn't know how much we were going to be getting because it was turning just like that.
That's a great example. And you were talking earlier about booking spikes and how you can prepare for that. So I have a good one for you. What's the type of situation that you dread the most from having worked all of these years in hospitality that you know can happen at any given moment and that you know will absolutely screw up your day?
Typically, weather, bad storms and weather can pretty much, especially if it's unexpected weather, it could really do it because you can get a flood of people coming in, and if you're not prepared for it, um, I've been in hotels where they float rooms, which means that instead of them cleaning everything from the weekend, they just tuck all the dirty out and just said we'll just clean those during the week as business progressed. Well, you floated rooms, which those rooms are still showing, but you kind of like, I'm not going to sell them. But then a storm hit, flights canceled. Now they trying to come to your hotel. Now you're rushing to try to get people to come in so you can get these rooms clean. So I've been in one of those situations.
Well, so, and I can imagine how that probably impacts guest experience. I mean, for the hotel, it is good to get the extra influx of guests, but it
Yes.
also ties into what you said about the staffing and, not staffing necessarily from all the giving staff you have available at any given point, but also from staffing them right now because you probably didn't account for it, right? So how does that impact guest experience? And, how do you make sure that people don't walk away feeling like the chaos?
And it's hard sometimes because no matter even if the guests know, some guests they know that you have a situation going on. They know that it's a natural disaster, whatever situation may be. Their expectations don't change. They're at the Kimpton, so they expect luxury service and they expect you to be taken care of. I try to put measures in place um, to lighten the load as much as possible. We had a situation once where power was out, customers were frantic, raining. Some people couldn't get checked in. I started a manual check-in system. I keep those sheets available at the desk. Even when we get distressed, I tell them customers would rather sit down. We have a nice large living room, waiting area versus standing in line. So I tell them that, tell everybody apologize for the delay. It's only 3 of us here. We're going to get you taken care of as soon as we can. If you don't want to wait in line, I have these numbered with the numbers on them, and we're going to call you by your number. You can go ahead and start filling out your information. We'll go ahead and start speeding up the process. I'll call someone from the restaurant. Hey, can you bring up some cold bottles of water? We try to make them feel as comfortable as possible because they've already been waiting or they're already angry. So we want to try to make a bad situation better as much as we can.
Yeah, I think those moments make all the difference. And speaking of guest experience, I mean, if we want to go a little deeper there, there's something kind of off topic from what we've been discussing so far, less about the heat of a moment and more about what happens before people living arrive. So I'm very curious about your perspective here. There's the pre-arrival window, right? The moment that the person books, and all of these days go by before they're actually sitting there at your reception in line, as you said, for the rooms. So Are you able to do anything with that window? And the reason I'm asking is I found that a lot of people are not doing much with the time that you know happens between that booking and the moment that the people are there. Yeah, and we can talk more about that. But first, let me just get your perspective there.
Well, we use this thing called Kipson, where we send messages out to our guests prior to their arrival. If they're Reward One members with us or they're there for a special occasion, we get notes or anything about it, then we may give them a complimentary upgrade. I may have a welcome amenity put in their room, things of that nature there. But we notify them of different things that's going on. If I upgrade them, we'll send them a message. Hi, Mr. Johnson. Thank you for being a loyal Reward One member. We went ahead and upgraded you on your stay. Wanted to just be aware of that. So we look forward to seeing you later today. Yada yada yada. Do you have an ETA time? So just things that we can help make this that transaction as smooth and exceed their expectations as much as possible. So that's our thing. We started doing a little thing called night snack where we go by the guest room after they check in around 6ish. And I got a little note. I signed the card and put a little thing of M&Ms or some kind of candy, maybe some cookies, and we put it right there by the bed and just tell them it's just a little night snack for you. Thank you for staying with us. Just a little something extra. Do we have to do that? No, we don't. But we want to give that guest that elevated experience and exceed their expectations as much as we can.
That's actually pretty remarkable because that window, I think you could leverage it in many ways. For example, from what I've read, also 10 to 20% of ancillary revenues left on the table by many hospitality companies or hotels because they don't know how to capture everything that they can offer. They don't know how to put it in front of these people, right? So that is one way in which we could use it. It sounds like you're leveraging this for the guest experience to improve their experience overall to make it smoother. If you had to quantify for me, even if in rough terms, what this means for you, whether that's in terms of customer satisfaction or time saved from personnel or ancillary revenue, would you be able to put a number to those things?
I've looked at the opportunities that we have to increase revenue. And what we've put in place is I've given them a spiel in a sense, and it speaks about everything that we provide at the hotel. And I encourage them to utilize our restaurant. We talk about our rooftop bar and the burgers and everything that they can experience on the rooftop. So the clerks try to sell them on everything that we have available before they get up to the room. Part of our, like I said, part of our spiel is to talk about the delicious meals, and we want to build the anticipation because a lot of times when you hear something and it sounds that good, that it kind of makes you want to. I'm hungry. I want to go try this. So we try to get them to experience um, what we have to offer there at the hotel as much as we can. Because I know in several hotels, especially near airports and in large cities, people come check in and then they go out for dinner to other places because they're not looking to eat at the hotel. So we try to entice them as much as we can.
And what's the experience that you feel brings the most value? Whether that's, again, in terms of customer satisfaction or because you can actually quantify that this is actually really attractive in the hotel. People actually spend money here.
Yeah, I think that it's a mixture of both. Because of where our hotel is located, we're on the campus of the Porsche National Office in North American National Office. So they have a Porsche track right there that's in our backyard. So you get a chance to see it from the rooftop. So you got the airplanes coming in because we're right on the runway, and you got the Porsche tracks right racing down below. So it kind of gives us a little added edge for someone to want to stay and dine upstairs and see all this stuff at one time. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I think it's a 50-50.
But are you able to see, like, this is where I'm headed? So bear with me for a moment. If you tomorrow, for example, wanted to know what needs you to drive more revenue toward, for example, do you have a way of knowing, what the restaurant was a little low in revenue last month? I don't know what happened. It was supposed to be higher and be able to make those decisions. Do you have that information available? Or, for example, are you able to say, we're offering this amenity, nobody's using it. Maybe we could reutilize the space somewhere else or put more effort to other things that we believe are going to bring more value. Those decisions, right? I mean, How do you make them?
Well, typically at one time, and being just said it, we cut lunch out because lunch was so slow that we didn't have anybody coming. So I'm paying for staff to be there, and it's no customers. Well, we got with the food and beverage director, and we looked at how can we enhance this lunch and make it more attractive. We have Porsche National Office on our campus. Now, even though they have a restaurant over there for the employees, they love coming over to our place. So let's do something. So we did. We went over with a new menu and we brought several of the items over. And Chef had them heated and right there in their break room for them. And we also handed them discount cards of 20%. And they were the metal cards that we had ordered with our logo on it. And it says, especially for you at Porch. And they come over and they present their card and get 20% off their meals. But we gave them a taste of what we were doing. So once we did that, the numbers went up. So you went from having one person for lunch, unless somebody was having a meeting, to having 25 to 30 people constantly coming for lunch. So we found ways of promoting or doing the right things to be able to attract the people to come in. Also, where we sit in Atlanta, it's only a few really decent restaurants. I mean, restaurants are decent. Let me not say it like that. But when you look at a more elevated experience, it's only us and maybe a couple of places. So one of them is closed on Monday and Tuesdays. So we do heavy advertisement about our Mondays and Tuesdays because we know that we're going to get a ton of people to come in for dinner that night because that restaurant is closed and this one is, so it works out for us. So we just planning around everything that goes on to be able to maximize and get the revenue up as much as we can.
How do you even come up with that stuff? I mean, how do you know this is happening in the first place, allowing you to make those creative decisions, right? Because you must be able to look at something and go, "Hey, this was the revenue for the restaurant. We could probably go from this to that if we did that other thing, right?" Or understanding the, like you said, the geographic dynamics around you so that you can make those decisions. But is that largely instinct from you or from somebody in your team coming up with it? Or do you have ways and tools in place to get that information?
We have tools in place to be able to review our number of covers based on occupancy. And we typically get a lot of business customers in play that stay with us. So we typically know that, they're going to use 1.5 meals at the restaurant for a 2-night stay. So we need to make sure that we target this group with information at check-in to make sure that we get them to go ahead and buy in with us.
Mhm.
On top of us also just knowing the market, I tell everybody, you got to know your market. You got to know what's going on around you in order for you to have a pulse on the industry and be able to make good decisions for your property.
So does the data tell you things like back to the customer experience, for example? Who are your returning guests? Who's your best, who are your best customers? What do they prefer? When did they last visit? What about that type of data?
Medallia gives us a majority of that. We're able to pull data from the surveys. We also receive information from our third-party surveys as well, so that we're able to look at those to Google and through our TripAdvisor. And plus, we have Open Table. So between the combination of all, we're able to know what's working, what's not working, or where we need to be trying to do something at this time, things of that nature there. We have different activations that we put in place depending on um, the need or the demand. So
Mhm.
yeah, we make those adjustments.
Great. So we briefly touched on F&B, and I'm gonna use that as a segue to talk a little bit about F&B. And that's because F&B is one of the places that has the widest gap between what the operators actually know is happening and what actually is happening in real time.
Yes.
So let me pick an example like inventory and ordering. You mentioned, for example, lunch was low in demand. So I imagine that goes into the decision making for things like how much food we're ordering so that you can minimize food cost, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's just a hunch. But
Yeah.
is that something that for you today is largely the judgment of the chefs, or is there historical data and insights and information that you can use to forecast the demand?
Well, we use a lot of it for historical information for forecasting purposes, but because we do have banquet space and we do catering events and lunches and different things of that nature there, we forecast it all into the food and beverage revenue side. So we're knowing that if in order for me to be able to have the restaurant operate in the right manner, whether it's slow or fast, we need to have this much in restaurant revenue and I need to have this much in catering revenue because it's going to be a markup in your catering side. So that's going to be able to support my food and beverage costs. So me to be able to have the people in place for the restaurant. So we kind of have to balance it on both ends to be able to make it work.
Do you feel like even with systems like that in place, your food cost still goes above a few points than you would want it to be? Or do you feel like it's very lean?
It still goes up. Part of that is our choice selection of food that we bring in. Director of food and beverage is also he's like a chef in me. So he brings a high quality of food selection, the menu selection of things that he's preparing because of the guests that we have in. So sometimes that can make it a little more costly versus us just getting something you can pull out and warm up. We're getting fresh pastry that are coming in daily versus, you know, just like I said, pull them out of the freezer. So sometimes that can add to cost. Now he is efficient with making sure that we stay within the guidelines as much as we can. So it becomes a challenge. I tell you that he has his work cut out for him. I tell you all the time, all the time.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like that's more of a deliberate choice, right? I mean, the hotel has the standards to adhere to. And so it's not like food waste. But
For
I mean, I
sure.
imagine there is also food waste. It's part of every operation, right?
Yes.
The other part of F&B that I think is massively important is staffing and scheduling, back to what you said before, right? And I hear that that's a huge time sink for managers. I think you briefly touched on staffing on a longer term basis as trying to find the talent and the people. But, how does your team, for example, manage scheduling and shift coverage for everything? I mean, not just F&B, but across the board.
Well, typically we have a system, a scheduler in place that pretty much I can put the forecast in and it's going to pretty much tell how many people we need in each area each day.
Wow.
Yeah. So it pretty much forecasts the amount of hours and then I divide that by the people and then we know what our coverage needs to be for each area. So I can look at it and tell where we at. Now, if we feel like an area a day could be tricky because we have a group in house and we know that they are on their own for meals, then we know that we possibly could get a spike. So I got to be prepared for that. So we add an additional person at that time, you know. But for the most part, the forecast is on point for what we need to do, and that we typically go over that at our ops meeting. So everybody have to bring their schedules in. I have one scheduler that everybody load them in. I'm looking at numbers, and if it's any area that look like it's going to go over, then they have to give me a justification for why it's going over.
I was just going to go there, Rodney, because I mean, it sounds like a very healthy system. I'm actually quite curious. I've yet to hear somebody tell me that their scheduling and staffing, either process or whatever, is perfect. Because I don't know if it's even possible, right? I mean, there's still unpredictability, but in your mind, how often does it happen that you see surprises then later on in like the overtime reports, for example? Or when, in the heat of the moment, once again, that you figure out that you're shorthanded. How often is that?
We have call outs or shorthanded in certain areas, certain times. We don't have a ton of them. My most challenging part of that is front desk because from a management or ownership standpoint, I would say when you pass by the desk and you have your checkout time and then you have your check-in time and then you have that dead space in between, right? Now, we have a lot of stuff for them to be able to do, but when you don't see customers and you see two people standing there, then people think that, can you get down to one person? And that's not the case. They don't understand that it's more to it. It's being able to prepare for the guests that are coming in, taking care of the guests that checked out, and making sure all the billing was done right and getting all. So it's other stuff that needs to be done, but because they see no customers, they see opportunity for savings, and then it end up overloading one person, and then guess what that person does? I'm gonna move on somewhere else that's gonna have two people. So you're battling back and forth on how you can have enough staff in and whether somebody calls out. And that's the reason why I typically look for anybody that's going to work management and with me. I don't look for someone that wants to sit behind a desk all the time. I need a person that wants to get into the mix, that's going to support their team. And if you have to get out there and take care of it, because that's the only way you're going to be successful.
How do you leverage the downtime that you could have from the people in the front desk? For example, like you say, I mean, there's more to it than just welcoming guests, but what else can you do with the, obviously the time that these people have, because again, they have a computer in front of them. So, and I have a hunch that every hotel does it a little differently. And maybe you do get the ones where the person's only job is to be there welcoming guests. But I also can't help but feel like there's a lot of value that you can get from that position,
Oh,
who are
yes, it
basically
is.
your front eyes.
Oh, yes, it is. So I have a checklist of items and things that have to be done, from your departures to your over limit reports to make sure that no one that's a stayover guest that has a over their limit. Make sure we go ahead and charge those and get those down. On KIPSU, we go through the arrival report. We see if we have any special guests coming in, any groups coming in, any pre-block, anything we need to do on that end. So between the duties that I have for them, it's enough to be done to take care of to make sure we're good. Plus, we have a contract with 4 airlines. So we have to have those rooms pre-checked and ready. So when the airline arrives, they just pretty much sign up for their keys and they're going to their rooms. So we have enough for them to be able to be busy, I promise you.
Mhm.
And that goes back to the accountability piece. That manager has to make sure that they hold them accountable to completing that list, and they have to get it done. And especially when you got 2 people, you divide up. You got this, you got that. You got this, you got that. And at the end of that shift, they should be good, and they should pass the baton to the next shift, and it should run smooth. And then the same thing goes from next shift to the next shift. So I have one for days, swing, and overnight.
Yeah, it doesn't come often on this show, the role of the front desk, but it does solidify a takeaway that I believe is consistent in these discussions, which is efficiency is key in hotel management and hospitality. Like you always have to find these places to get the most value out of people. Obviously, not burn them out, right? But this value out of people and systems and everything. And I'm getting that confirmation from you. But as we approach the end of our chat, because I know we're getting close to time, I want to take a moment to also shift to the forward looking perspectives that you may have. First, a little bit of introspection. If you could fix one thing about how your operation is running now, think about your to-do list or your bucket list of things that you wish you could quickly change from the operations standpoint, right? Not about the market as a whole, but within the hotel. What would it be? What would you take now?
We have to go back to staffing. If I could fix staffing, this hotel would be amongst the 5 Kimptons in America. I knew I could do it. I know I could do it.
Great. And how would you do that?
Well, if you had the proper staffing, then you can enhance the training where they could be more effective and more efficient when it comes to dealing with the customers and getting things taken care of. I think that people that are more effective and more efficient could make the operations run a lot smoother. When you have smooth operations and everybody is informed of everything that goes on, then they can be more informative and give the guests a better experience. And it just trickles down from the welcome experience all the way to the end. I tell them, don't let a problem walk out the door. But sometimes if it's a person by themselves and they got a line, they kind of got to say, okay, enjoy your stay. Have a nice day. Help stay fair," and then move on to the next guest. They can't elaborate and take that time to make sure. I said, "Was there a problem?" Like, "Yeah, they didn't do this." And, "I do apologize. Let me take your information down. I want to make sure I get it with my manager. Can I give you a call back a little later? I want to resolve this." Something to make the customer feel that you care about them. It's all about the experience. I just truly believe if you provide the information with training and you have the right amount of staff and support, you can really make a hotel into a very profitable and a very how can I say, top service, top tier hotel.
100% agree. What is one decision, Rodney, that you have made, that you personally have made, not the whole leadership team, like Rodney, in the past year or two that you feel really moved the needle, that it made a difference and that you consider a real win?
I went to another property. We had a sister property in Baltimore that had very terrible scores. It was very, their labor was bad. expenses, everything. They need some help. The GM had left, and they asked me to come in and oversee the property for a few months. Well, I went there for 4 months, and within 2 months, I turned the schools around. We got the profitability going in the right direction. They went from the bottom Kimpton list to now in the top 20. And, it got kudos on a few calls saying that it was the first time they seen a property turn around that fast. But it was just they had the right staff in place, but it was just getting buy-in with the staff. And then when we saw I saw where the problem was with the few people that they did have that had problems, and they shouldn't have been in hospitality. They should have been a part of this team. And we got them out, and we loved on the rest of them and supported them, and the scores went up. And then you supported the sales team on helping them to get groups in and things of that nature there, and we got the revenue moving in the right direction. So it's all about just putting a plan in place. And for me to go do that in roughly 90 days, a little past, it just assured me that once I get back to my property in Atlanta, we can do the same thing. But I need the support, of course, from ownership and management in order for me to be able to make those things happen.
Awesome. Before I let you go, Rodney, I have a bit of a lightning round for you. Something very quick. I mean, I'm gonna throw a couple of questions at you. I want you to respond with the first thing that comes to mind. No overthinking, no nothing. Just first thing that comes to mind. So let me shoot. In your mind, what is the most overrated thing in hospitality technology right now?
Most overrated. Ooh, that's a good one. Most overrated. I would have to say Star Report. No, I'll just say, yeah, I would say some of the reporting systems that they're getting, they're overrated. I think that the information, some of it is bland, and it's a repeat. They got these different this star and that star. They got these different reporting. I just think that we could go to one system and not have to go through all these different systems in order to get the same information, because it all almost sounds the same to me.
Yep, makes total sense. So let me ask you this: what is the system that you cannot run without?
System I cannot run without would probably be, well, that's our main system, Opera. But other than Opera, I would have to say my schedule system, and the BI analytics. The forecasting is on point. They pull the data from all the historical information, and they use it on top of what's going on in the market. It's like they pull all kinds of data from different things, and they give you a forecast that I haven't seen to be as accurate as I have. And it's very accurate. So it really helps us when it comes to being productive and being efficient on our schedule.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like a big one. From all the time that you've been in hospitality, what stands apart or what sets apart average operators from the great operators?
Communication. You have to be able to communicate with your team and be able to have a pulse of what's going on in your property. I've seen leadership come in, and they were directors of operations for multiple properties, and they were making decisions without understanding the pulse of the property. And they were close to, and some of them made decisions that they had to go back and change, but because they didn't have a pulse of what was going on, they just made a financial move and it hurt them. Then they go back, "Wait, we got to change that." It's just like, that's crazy. I was trying to tell you, don't do it. you know, those kind of things.
Yeah, I totally get that one. Last but not least, Rodney, if you were not in hospitality, what would you be doing for a living?
I think if I wasn't in hospitality, I think that I would be a motivational speaker, or I'll be doing something to help people. It would probably be somehow working with people, being a motivational speaker, or something in that field. I love helping people. I love seeing people win, champion, helping people, reach their goals. So I would be doing something in that field. So that makes it ideal for me to work in hospitality. I fell in love with taking care of people and making people feel good and enjoying themselves, and then making my staff, because I believe in this. You have two customers. You have the internal and the external customer. I like the people that work for me to like to work for me. I like the people that come visit me like to come visit me.
That's I cannot really think of a more wonderful note to end the show in. So with that response, Rodney, let me say thanks for being here today. This was actually a great conversation. I love how candid you are with everything, and with your focus on the people, and And all of this integral perspective you have from all of those years working in this industry, it's clear that you are actually really passionate about it. And like I said, that's definitely coming across. So, Rodney, where can our listeners follow you and what you're building? Or failing that, Kimpton Overland Hotel, how can they
Well, they
continue
can
to be in
follow
touch
me,
with
of
you?
course, and I'm always posting stuff at Rodney Jiles on Facebook. That's Rodney Jiles with a J. And I'm at Mr. Giles 47 on Instagram. I'm always posting stuff about our hotel. And we do a lot of activations on our rooftop. And we work with local promoters and different people in the area to always have something going on. So you definitely can check my page out and see what's going on at the Kimpton or wherever I'm at, whatever I'm doing.
Awesome. Well, you heard Rodney. Check out Kimpton Overland Hotel
Most
next time
definitely.
you're in Atlanta. Thanks everybody for listening to Deep Current. If you are a hospitality operator dealing with any of the challenges that Rodney discussed here today and want to keep that conversation going, feel free to reach out to Rodney. Feel free to reach out to us at oceanscode.com. We'd love to keep
Yes.
that conversation going. And for now, thank you so much once again. Until
Thank you.
next time.